Hello there, adventurers, and welcome to Wally DM. Today our adventuring party exits a forest and enters a large clearing. Now ahead of them, about 40 to 50 feet, is this giant tree, and hanging from this tree is a humanoid figure. Now does our adventuring party get a little bit closer and try to see what's up? Maybe try to get this figure out of the tree for a proper burial, or do they just continue about their business? Now this trap is one that can be set by goblins or kobolds, and it's a good one to run for early level characters, but of course you can scale it up to fit for your higher level characters if you decide to do so. This is another trap that we're going to pull from Legends and Lairs Traps and Treachery 2, and this one's called Hangman's Last Laugh. Hey, do you need more traps and puzzles for your game? Then be sure to pick up my best-selling book, Wally DM's Journal Puzzle Encounters, available now on DriveThru RPG. So this trap is fairly easy to set up. Our adventuring party comes out of the woodline or forest. They've probably been traveling down a path or a trail for quite some time, and they come into this grassy clearing. Now I would probably make the grass at least 3 feet high because we have a few traps that we're going to try to conceal. Now once they come into this clearing, they're going to see about 30 feet away that there is a humanoid corpse that is hanging from a tree. Now of course the first thing the party could do is they could just avoid the corpse altogether and continue on their way. But in this adventure or scenario here, we're going to assume that they're actually out looking for someone, maybe a missing person, and so our adventuring party is going to need to get a little bit closer, and once they get within 15 feet of the corpse, I'm going to allow them to see that there is a small sign that is hanging from the neck of the corpse, but it is still too far away for them to be able to read it. Now it's also at this point when they're within 15 feet that I'm going to allow them to make a perception check, and we're going to have 2 successes on this perception check. The first one is going to be success at a 15, and the second one is going to be success at a 20. Now with a perception roll of 15 or higher, then I'm going to allow the characters to see a few things. The first, they're going to notice that this body is hanging from a rope, and the rope is slung over the branch of a tree, although where it goes exactly is concealed by a few other branches and some leaves. They're also going to notice that this suspended body is dressed normally, though the poor condition of the clothing suggests that the body has been in its current position for quite a while. Now as a DM note, the goblins or kobolds or whoever has set this trap has used preservatives to keep the body from rotting, and there are some foul smelling herbs that are tucked into the clothing of the body to help keep scavengers away. Now I feel any character with a roll of 20 or higher on that perception check is when they're going to get within about 12 feet of the body, then they're going to be able to look down and they're going to see a tripwire that is running through the grass. Now again, this grass is very tall. It's a grassland type of a clearing. If that perception roll is made by our person, like our wizard, who might be the second person that is walking through the grass, he may not be able to shout out to the leader in time that he sees this tripwire. So there is a good chance that it will go off anyway. Now if no one has rolled a 20 or higher on their perception check and they get within 10 feet of the corpse, that is when they're going to trip over the tripwire. And when they do that, there is a pair of shears or scissor-like tool that is going to cut the rope, and this body is going to fall onto the ground, and gas spores are going to erupt from the body, which the kobolds or goblins or again whomever set this trap had filled into empty animal bladders, and the entire area within 15 feet is going to be sprayed with poison. Now it would allow at this time a DC 18 Constitution saving throw to all of those within 15 feet, as the gas spores are going to fill the area. For those that make the DC 18, they're only going to take half damage, but those that don't make it are going to take 3d6 worth of poison damage and can have some sneezing, choking, coughing, or things of that nature. Now this is just one way to trigger the trap. Let's assume that our adventurers did see this tripwire and they step over it or disable it, and they're able to get closer to the body. Well, it's at this point they're going to be able to read that very small writing that is on the sign, and it's simply just going to say, "Die, human, die." Now this could just be goblins or kobolds being hateful, or maybe they're trying to intimidate someone and trying to scare them away. Up to you and the story that you're trying to tell as the DM. Now, once they're this close to the body, again, they're going to be able to tell that this body has been preserved for some time. The clothes look like they've been out in the weather for quite a while. And the second trigger point is only going to trigger if the characters try to get this body out of the tree. Now, what is actually going on is the goblins, kobolds, or again, whoever has set this trap has stitched this body together. So at the waist, and filled this body with animal sacs like of poison. So in order to conceal that, they put the clothes over the top of it. So let's say our ranger comes in here and tries to get this body down out of the tree, and they start to move it around. As soon as they start to move it around, the body's going to split in half. The bottom half is going to hit the ground, and once again, we're going to have our 15-foot radius of gas spores or poisonous spores fill the area. So once all of our saving throws have been made and the poisonous spores have settled into the ground, then this area is clear, and that will allow our adventurers to either pack up this body to take back to town and claim their reward for finding it, or if they need to continue on down the trail, they can do that as well. And of course, as a DM, perhaps this is just beginning and this was meant to ward someone off, so there may be an ambush of kobolds or goblins that are waiting for them and probably watch them the entire time that they were messing with this trap. We have a lot to cover as far as this trap goes. The first is, how are we going to lure our players in? Rather than being some random humanoid, perhaps they were hired by someone in town to go and find a missing person. They are given a brief description, and when they come out of the woods into the clearing, they're like, yeah, that's probably the person, but they're going to need to get a little bit closer in order to find out. Now, other than just a random NPC that they're searching for, this also could be somebody they know. Perhaps it's a shopkeeper that went missing or something along those lines, so that when they do see him from 40, 50 feet out, they're going to recognize him right away. Now, another thing that I think would be fun and interactive with your players is if you make that tiny sign that is written and hanging from the corpse only viewable within 5 feet, and you could have it in dragon for kobolds or in the goblinoid language for goblins. Or, like I said earlier in the video, you could just have it in common in order to try to scare folks away. Now, if your players have their characters approach very carefully and are actually looking for traps, then I would probably lower the DCs. I would make the first DC a 12 and the second DC a 15, or just give them advantage on their perception check. I feel if they're actively looking for traps in the grass and in the trees specifically, then we should give them some type of a bonus. Now, if they do find out, make sure that they know that they see a tripwire that is running through their grass, and they can actually see that it goes up the tree, and once they track that all the way up to the tree, then they can see that there's a pair of giant scissors or shears waiting to cut the rope. Now, what are some good ways to disarm the trap? Well, there could be a few ways, and the first I mentioned earlier is you just ignore it and walk on by. But if this is a NPC that the characters are looking for, they're probably going to need to bring the body back or at least give a proper burial. So if they decide that the area could be trapped, perhaps they stand about 40 or 50 feet back and they use a bow and arrow or a crossbow to try to shoot the rope down so that the body hits the floor. I did say that, didn't I? The body hits the floor. Once the body is on the ground, they're going to see it poof out like a piñata, and this big old cloud of poisonous spores is going to fill the air. The trap's been triggered and they're no longer in threat or in danger. They can go get the body and take it back to town. So that's all I have for you today. What did you think of this trap? Is this something that you could use in your game? And if so, what would you do differently? In particular, I'd really like to know who set this trap. Are you going to use goblins or kobolds, or perhaps some other entity? And what is this trap trying to protect? Is it trying to scare off others or trying to intimidate, or is there something hidden behind there? Be sure to leave a comment below and let me know what you think and all of your ideas on how to use this. Thank you very much for watching. We'll catch you in the next video and on to the next.